my Mexican fan base is largely responsible for me even existing. So between them and the black community, it's really all I have. But I don't think I need to apologize for being pro-American.
There is one name in Hollywood that makes powerful people go quiet. Not nervous, not uncomfortable, quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when someone knows something about you, and they're not afraid to say it out loud, on camera, in front of millions of people. That name is Katt Williams. And today, we're going deeper than any video has ever gone. Because we're not just talking about what Katt Williams said, we're talking about who it rattled. We're talking about Chris Rock, one of the greatest comedians alive, and Dave Chappelle, the man who turned down $50 million and lived to explain it. Both of them have, in their own ways, acknowledged what the industry refuses to say on record. Katt Williams is the most feared comedian in Hollywood. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you're going to ask yourself a question you haven't thought to ask before. Why does a comedian make billionaires nervous? Let's get into it. The foundation of fear. Before we bring Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle into the picture, we need to understand what fear actually looks like in Hollywood. It doesn't look like screaming. It doesn't look like public confrontations. In Hollywood, fear looks like silence. It looks like a powerful celebrity who suddenly has no comment. It looks like a publicist sending a carefully worded statement that says absolutely nothing. It looks like someone laughing off an accusation just a little too quickly, a little too loudly. That's the fear Katt Williams produces. Now ask yourself, how many comedians do you know who can do that? How many stand-up comics have made Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Kevin Hart, Steve Harvey, and Cedric the Entertainer all respond, or deliberately not respond, to something they said? The answer is one, just one. Katt Williams didn't build his reputation overnight. From the early 2000s, when he first broke onto comedy stages with that electric, frenetic, brilliantly unhinged style,
let that be true to you. Don't let them change what your idea of true is.
audiences sensed something different about him. Yes, he was funny, outrageously funny. But beneath the laughter there was something sharper, something that didn't feel entirely like performance. When Katt Williams talked about the system, about the industry, about who was really pulling the strings, he didn't sound like a man telling jokes. He sounded like a man telling secrets. And Hollywood has never been comfortable with people who tell secrets. By the mid-2000s, the entertainment press had started doing what it always does to people who speak inconvenient truths. They painted him as unstable, difficult, controversial. Saturday Night Live parodied him, exaggerating his look and mannerisms in skits that his supporters called a targeted effort to discredit him before he could land his next truth bomb. Think about that for a second. Saturday Night Live, the institution, dedicating sketch time to mocking a comedian who wasn't even on their network. Why? What exactly were they afraid he was going to say? That question matters. Keep it in the back of your mind. Chris Rock and the Code of Silence. Here's where Chris Rock enters the conversation. And it's more subtle than you might expect. Chris Rock is a man who understands Hollywood's power structure intimately. He's navigated it. He's been shaped by it. He's also, at key moments in his career, pushed against it. His 1996 special Bring the Pain was groundbreaking precisely because it said things that black comedians weren't supposed to say on mainstream platforms.
Black people too. Everything white people don't like about black people really don't like about black people.
He critiqued the community from within. He held up a mirror. He took the risk. And so when Chris Rock speaks, even obliquely, about Katt Williams, it carries weight. Rock has acknowledged in various interviews and moments on record that the comedy world operates on an unspoken code. There are things you say and things you don't. There are names you call out and names you protect. There are feuds you engage with publicly and battles you know better than to enter. In that world, Katt Williams is the anomaly. He doesn't follow the code. He never has. Rock's own journey through Hollywood gives him a unique lens to understand why that matters. When Rock was at his peak, when he was the most commercially viable black comedian in America, he operated within certain guardrails. He was edgy, yes. Controversial at times, absolutely. But he also made movies that studios approved. He hosted the Oscars. He played the game. Katt Williams never played the game. And here's what Chris Rock has understood better than most. The men and women who refuse to play the game don't just get punished, they get studied, because in a system built on control, someone who can't be controlled becomes a threat. Not a nuisance, a threat. And when Chris Rock talks about the architecture of Hollywood's comedy world, Katt Williams sits at the center of the conversation, whether his name is spoken or not. Rock once discussed how the industry has a way of elevating certain voices while quietly suppressing others, not through loud opposition, but through the slow, methodical withdrawal of opportunity. No phone calls, no roles, no invitations. The industry simply pretends you don't exist. And then, one day, enough time has passed that the general public starts to believe it too. But it didn't work on Katt Williams. Every time Hollywood tried to freeze him out, he came back louder. Every time the media tried to bury his message under stories about his personal life, his fans dug through the noise and found the signal. And that resilience, that refusal to disappear, is precisely what makes him feared. Because you can silence someone once, you can marginalize them twice. But when they keep coming back, when their audience keeps growing, that's when fear sets in for real. Dave Chappelle, the mirror image. Now let's talk about Dave Chappelle, because this is where the story gets genuinely complex. If Katt Williams is Hollywood's loudest whistleblower, Dave Chappelle is its most calculating one. Where Williams charges forward, guns blazing, calling names and demanding accountability, Chappelle circles the target slowly, dissects it with surgical precision, and then delivers the blow when you least expect it. But make no mistake, they are fighting the same war. In 2005, Dave Chappelle walked away from a $50 million deal with Comedy Central. At the time, the mainstream narrative was simple. Chappelle had a breakdown. He was overwhelmed. He cracked under pressure. The industry was more than happy to let that story breathe, because it was a story that protected the system. It made Chappelle the problem, not the deal, not the network, not the conditions attached to the money. Katt Williams saw through it immediately. In his 2024 appearance on Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast, a conversation that exploded across the internet and racked up tens of millions of views.
We good now?
Because the people want to know, why would he get blackballed? 30 years, I've done nothing but collect.
Williams addressed Chappelle's decision directly. He said he respected Chappelle for walking away from the money. He explained that the pressures of the entertainment industry could break the strongest minds, and that refusing to compromise was an act of genuine courage. But Williams also pushed further. He hinted that Chappelle's departure may not have been entirely voluntary, that industry power players could have influenced the decision, that Chappelle might have been pushed out because he wouldn't bend to Hollywood's system. Now pause here, because this is important. Williams wasn't attacking Chappelle. He was raising a question that nobody in mainstream entertainment was willing to ask. Was the $50 million walkaway a heroic act of resistance? Or was it the result of invisible pressure from people who decided Chappelle had become too dangerous to keep on a major platform? Think about what Chappelle's show was doing at the time. It wasn't just making people laugh. It was deconstructing racial stereotypes on national television. It was exposing the absurdity of America's relationship with race in ways that were funny enough to be widely consumed, but sharp enough to be genuinely dangerous. Dangerous to whom? To the narratives that powerful people had spent decades constructing. Chappelle eventually responded. During a performance at the Hollywood Improv in 2024, he addressed Williams, carefully, without stating his name outright. His message was pointed. He felt Williams was spending too much energy targeting fellow black comedians rather than the broader industry structures that controlled them all. "We're comedians," he said. "We don't attack each other." And here's where the real tension lives. Because both men are right. Williams believes in individual accountability. He names names. He holds specific people responsible for specific actions. To him, the Oprahs, Tyler Perrys, and Kevin Harts of the world are not innocent bystanders in a corrupt system. They are active participants. And if they benefit from the system's corruption while presenting themselves as icons of black success, then they deserve to be called out publicly. Chappelle believes in structural accountability. He understands that naming individuals can become a distraction, a way of fighting battles that feel personal and satisfying, but leave the larger machine untouched. His argument is essentially this: why are we fighting each other when the people who built the cage are watching us from a safe distance? Both arguments are valid. Both represent genuine strategies for confronting a system designed to exploit talent. And the fact that two of the most brilliant comedic minds of their generation disagree on how to fight is itself a testament to how deeply embedded the problem runs. But here is what neither man can deny. Together, their voices created a conversation that Hollywood could not shut down. When Chapelle walked away from Comedy Central, it planted a seed of doubt in the public consciousness. When Williams went on Club Shay Shay and spent hours laying out his case against the industry, that seed burst into full bloom. Millions of people who had never thought critically about Hollywood's power structures suddenly couldn't stop thinking about it. That's what makes both men feared. Not their individual acts of rebellion, but the combination of their voices reaching audiences that the industry had long assumed were too distracted to pay attention. The feuds that proved the point. Let's get specific, because the evidence matters. Katt Williams didn't just talk about corruption in vague, untraceable terms. He named people, he made claims, and in doing so, he put himself in the crosshairs of some of the most powerful figures in entertainment. Oprah Winfrey. Williams accused her of attempting to orchestrate a boycott against rapper 50 Cent and claimed her influence extended far beyond daytime television, that she was actively shaping which artists could thrive in Hollywood and which would be shut out. Oprah's response? Silence. Complete, deliberate silence. And in Hollywood, silence from someone that powerful isn't neutrality. It's a choice. Tyler Perry. Williams alleged that Perry's entertainment empire was built on favoritism and backroom deals that locked out talented actors who refused to conform. He accused Perry of harboring deep insecurities and using his position to suppress other black artists. Perry's supporters pointed to all the careers he'd helped launch, but Williams' counter-argument was sobering. What's the cost of those careers? What did those actors have to agree to, accept, or ignore in order to get through the door? Kevin Hart. This feud hit different. Williams accused Hart of taking movie roles that were originally meant for him. But more seriously, he argued that Hart's rise was engineered by Hollywood as a safe, non-threatening alternative to Katt Williams. Think about the implications of that claim. Williams was essentially saying, the industry looked at me, decided I was too honest and too unpredictable, and then created a replacement, someone who would deliver the laughs without the inconvenient truths. Hart called it noise. He said he was content with his career and had no interest in public battles. But notice what he didn't do. He didn't dispute the claim directly. He didn't sit down and say, here's how I got my roles. Here's what I was offered. Here's the timeline. He brushed it off. And to Katt Williams' supporters, that brush-off was itself confirming. Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer. Williams accused Harvey of stealing jokes, not just from him, but from comedian Mark Curry, and claimed that Harvey had fabricated elements of his personal story to manufacture a more dramatic origin narrative. He said both Harvey and Cedric had privately admitted to stealing material but never owned up publicly. Cedric denied everything. Harvey stayed silent. And here's the thing about that silence and those denials. In a world where defamation lawsuits are a standard tool for protecting reputations, not a single one of these figures took Williams to court. Not Oprah, not Tyler Perry, not Kevin Hart, not Steve Harvey, not Cedric. Make of that what you will. The Friday after next moment, that changed everything. Here's a story that most casual fans of Katt Williams don't know, and when you hear it, something clicks into place. During the production of Friday After Next in 2002, Williams played Money Mike.
Hey, Pope, sweet Jesus, Lord have mercy. How you guys doing, fellas?
A flashy, quick-witted character who became one of the most memorable parts of the film. But in the original script, Money Mike was supposed to be sexually assaulted in a bathroom scene. Williams refused. He didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for a rewrite that softened the scene. He pushed back hard, argued that the scene wasn't funny, that it crossed a line of taste and integrity, and that it would damage the film. The scene was cut. It never made it to screen. Now, why does this matter in the context of a video about why Hollywood fears him? Because it reveals something about the pattern. The entertainment industry, particularly in Hollywood, has a long, well-documented history of pressuring black performers to participate in content that demeans or degrades them. It's been framed as comedy, It's been framed as artistic vision. It's been framed as box office necessity. And in most cases, the performers comply because the alternative is being frozen out. Katt Williams didn't comply. At a moment in his career when he was a relatively new actor in a major franchise, when refusing could have cost him the role entirely, he held the line. And then, years later, he talked about it publicly. He named what was in the original script. He explained why he said no. He connected the dots between that moment and the larger pattern of exploitation he saw running through the industry. That is not the behavior of someone who's unstable or difficult. That is the behavior of someone with an unusually clear moral compass, operating in an environment that punishes moral clarity. Why the industry labels truth-tellers crazy? Here's a question worth sitting with. Why is it that the entertainers who speak most directly about Hollywood's corruption are always the ones labeled as mentally unstable? It's not a coincidence. It's a strategy. When Katt Williams started making his most pointed accusations about the industry's power structures, the media narrative shifted away from the content of what he was saying and toward questions about his state of mind. Was he okay? Was he having a breakdown? Had the lifestyle caught up with him? Dave Chappelle experienced the same thing in 2005. The moment he walked away from Comedy Central, the industry's first move was to question his sanity. He wasn't standing on principle. He was cracking. He was losing it. Chris Rock, in his own work, has acknowledged the way the entertainment industry uses personal scandals and character attacks to manage dissent. When someone starts saying things that the system doesn't want said, the system's response isn't to engage with the substance. The system attacks the messenger. It's a playbook as old as power itself, and the fact that it keeps being deployed against comedians, people whose entire job is to tell the truth in creative ways, should tell you something about how seriously the industry takes that truth-telling. Katt Williams understood this explicitly. In multiple interviews, he said outright that he recognized the strategy. He described it as a deliberate attempt to undermine his credibility and distract audiences from the substance of his claims. And rather than retreating, he doubled down. Every attempt to discredit him seemed to fuel another round of revelations. That feedback loop, attack the messenger, watch the messenger get louder, is one of the reasons Hollywood genuinely fears him, because the usual tools don't work. The blacklisting didn't silence him. The media mockery didn't silence him. The personal controversies didn't silence him. He kept coming back, and every time he came back, his audience was a little bigger than before. The 2024 Reckoning. In 2024, something shifted in the public conversation around Katt Williams. It wasn't just fans in comedy circles anymore. Mainstream audiences, people who maybe knew him casually from Friday After Next or from clips on social media,
I guarantee I want to do the thing.
Think about your mama, man.
Think about my mama. Think about your ass.
Think about what your mama say.
started paying serious attention. The Club Shay Shay interview was the catalyst. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't a comedy set. It was nearly 3 hours of Katt Williams sitting across from Shannon Sharpe and laying out, in extraordinary detail, his view of how Hollywood operates. He talked about the gatekeepers. He talked about the deals. He talked about who benefited from the system and who got crushed by it. He talked about integrity and why it cost him money, roles, and relationships. And the internet could not look away. The clips circulated for weeks. Different segments went viral in different communities. Comedy fans dissected the parts about Steve Harvey and Cedric. Hip-hop fans lit up over the comments about Oprah and 50 Cent. Film fans debated the Tyler Perry allegations. And across all of those conversations, one theme kept emerging. This man has been telling us this for years, and we weren't listening. Williams called 2024 the age of truth. He declared that all lies would be exposed, that the deviants, his word, would face reckoning. He described himself as a reluctant messenger, genuinely wishing that these conversations were being had by religious leaders or politicians rather than a comedian. But since no one else was having them, he would. Dave Chappelle was also active in 2024, working through his own critiques of Hollywood's censorship and the limits placed on creative expression. While their approaches remained different, their simultaneous visibility in the public conversation created an atmosphere of genuine reckoning. Two of the most fearlessly honest comedians in modern history, both at peak cultural relevance, both pointing at the same corrupt machinery from different angles. Hollywood noticed, and Hollywood was not pleased. What celebrity silence actually means. Let's return to the silence, because it keeps coming up and it deserves its own examination. When multiple A-list celebrities, people with the resources, legal teams, and platform to respond forcefully to any accusation they found false, choose instead to say nothing, it should raise questions. The common explanation is that engaging gives the attacker attention and oxygen. Don't feed the troll, rise above it. But there's another explanation, one that Katt Williams has offered repeatedly and that his supporters find entirely convincing. Sometimes people don't respond because responding requires them to either lie or admit something they're not ready to admit. Silence is neither confirmation nor denial. It's a preservation strategy. Think about how this plays out. Oprah Winfrey, with her billion-dollar brand and legal infrastructure, could have sat down for an interview and calmly, factually dismantled every claim Williams made about her. She didn't. Tyler Perry, with decades of goodwill in Hollywood and the black community, could have made one statement directly addressing Williams's allegations. He hasn't. Kevin Hart, one of the most commercially successful comedians on the planet, could have demanded a sit-down, any platform, any format, to address Williams' claims about his career being engineered. He called it noise instead. None of these choices prove that Williams was right, but they do prove that these are people who made deliberate strategic decisions not to engage. And in a media environment where silence is routinely interpreted as guilt, that decision carries consequences. For Williams' audience, the silence was confirmation. For the celebrities involved, it was presumably the lesser of two bad options. Either way, the result was the same. Katt Williams remained the loudest voice in the room, and no one with the power to challenge him directly chose to do so. The tragedy and the mission. No honest account of Katt Williams' story can ignore the tragedy. In August 2025, comedian Reggie Carroll, a performer associated with Williams' Heaven on Earth tour, was fatally shot. The alleged shooter was identified as a security guard who had been working for Williams at the time. The incident was devastating, and it cast a shadow over everything Williams had built with that tour.
Some people say that the Katt Williams interview with Willie D.
The media coverage that followed told its own story. Instead of focusing primarily on the loss of Reggie Carroll's life, the coverage quickly pivoted to controversy, to questions about the world surrounding Williams, to implications about the kind of chaos that seemed to follow him. His supporters were furious. Even in tragedy, they argued, the media found a way to make Katt Williams the story rather than the victim. It was a painful echo of the pattern Williams had spent years describing. The industry, and the media that served it, had a way of ensuring that even genuine tragedy became ammunition against those who spoke inconvenient truths. Williams continued. He kept performing. He kept talking. He kept pointing at the machinery and demanding that his audience look where he was pointing. That persistence in the face of loss and grief and relentless opposition is not nothing. It is, in its own way, the most compelling argument Williams has made. A man willing to keep speaking after everything that's been done to silence him is either deeply troubled or deeply convinced that what he's saying matters. His audience has made their judgment, millions of them, growing in number. Why you should care. Here's the question we've been building toward this entire video, and we want you to actually sit with it, not just scroll past it. Why does any of this matter to you? You're not in Hollywood. You're not a comedian. The feuds between Katt Williams and Kevin Hart or Steve Harvey might feel like celebrity drama, entertaining maybe, but ultimately irrelevant to your life. But here's what Katt Williams would tell you, and what Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle would both agree with in their own ways. Hollywood is not separate from reality. The stories it tells, the people it elevates, the voices it amplifies, and the ones it suppresses, all of that shapes what you believe about success, about black excellence, about what's possible, and who gets to achieve it. When an industry decides which version of black comedy gets to be famous, the safe, non-threatening, commercially packaged version, and then engineers that version's rise while quietly sidelining the raw, honest, uncomfortable version, it is making a choice about what truths you get to hear. It is deciding for you what reality looks like. Katt Williams has been fighting that decision for his entire career. So has Dave Chappelle, in his own way. So, at his best moments, has Chris Rock. What's remarkable is that despite all the tools Hollywood has used to manage them, the blacklisting, the media narratives, the mockery, the silence, all three of them are still here, still working, still talking, still reaching audiences that continue to grow. So why is Katt Williams the most feared comedian in Hollywood?
Katt Williams in the car, but debating about what bands are and are not nu metal.
Not because he's violent, not because he's reckless, not because he's unstable, despite what they tried to make you believe. He's feared because he knows things and he says them. He's feared because the usual tools don't work on him. He's feared because his audience trusts him in a way that no publicist and no media narrative has been able to erode. He's feared because every time they've tried to make him disappear, he's come back bigger. Chris Rock understands this. Dave Chappelle understands this. And slowly, undeniably, the rest of the world is starting to understand it too. The industry depends on silence. It depends on the people who know the truth deciding that the cost of speaking it is too high. It depends on audiences being too distracted, too entertained, too comfortable to ask serious questions about who controls the stories they're being told. Katt Williams decided a long time ago that silence wasn't an option, and in doing so, he became the one thing that Hollywood, with all its money, all its influence, all its carefully constructed machinery, cannot neutralize: the truth. If this video gave you something to think about, drop it in the comments. Which part hit hardest? And more importantly, who else do you think is out there right now, knowing things they haven't said yet? We'll be watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into the stories Hollywood doesn't want told. Hit the notification bell, because the next one is going to be even bigger.